In episode 3, Homelander introduces the 2 new members of the 7. You've obviously got Sister Sage, but Sister Sage brought along Firecracker. They get introduced to the public in a big rally of support, and then afterwards they have to do media. And it's at media where Firecracker starts spewing off conspiracy theories left and right. Big time Marjorie Taylor Greene vibes. And Homelander actually asked Sister Sage, that girl? Seriously? But Sister Sage is adamant, yes, we need her. Trust me on this. But Sister Sage is not in a good mood. She didn't want to be put in the 7. She wanted to be behind the scenes, but Homelander kind of thrust her into the spotlight, and now she's stuck. And Firecracker's conspiracy theories, along with her attacks on Starlight, have already hit the whack jobs of New York. One guy in particular walks into the Starlight house, which is her charity, and he says, all right, where are the kids? Are you hiding them in the basement? And this is one of Firecracker's big conspiracy theories. And it's Starlight's attorney that has to let him know, yeah, but there's no kids in the basement. But the guy just doesn't believe it. He believes it actually so much he brings a gun. To which Frenchie, who was just there to talk to Colin, he messes that guy's day up pretty good. And the way that Frenchie disarmed this guy caught the attention of Colin. He didn't expect that. Frenchie was cut up in the ordeal a little bit. Colin patches him back to health, but Colin wants to kiss that boo-boo and make it feel all better. And Frenchie has to push him back and say, no, we can't do this because he's dealing with that internal conflict of the whole, killing Colin's entire family thing. In fact, he's so bothered by it that when he gets back to the Flatiron Building, he takes a bunch of pills that are going to mess him up and seeing a bunch of different fun colors. And he had no plans on doing anything else but tripping, until Kimiko walks in, tells him that she found a Shining Light terrorist cell, and she's going to go ruin it, and she needs his help. And at first, Frenchie goes, no, I'm not really in the mood for that, but Kimiko just guilt trips him and says, no, I need you right now, and you're going to come with me, and she forces him to go with her. A little while later, they arrive at the Shining Light cell, and right away, Kimiko goes into action, killing anybody within sight. Frenchie, on the other hand, well, those pills kicked in. And while Kimiko goes to work, he's seeing all sorts of stuff, but then he suffers a bad trip, and he sees a lot of people that he's killed, including Colin's family, and Colin asking him why he did it. By the time he snaps out of it, he walks back into the room where Kimiko was, and Kimiko is busy sparing someone's life, which you don't see very often, but that's because Kimiko recognized the girl. A girl that she couldn't bring herself to kill, but a girl that definitely wanted to kill Kimiko. And when Kimiko spares this girl's life, the girl just runs off. It's pretty clear, though, the two do have a backstory, and Frenchie asks what it is, but Kimiko doesn't get into it. While those two were messing up Shining Light back at the Flatiron Building, Mother's Milk, Annie, and Huey all met up, and they're watching the news coverage of the unveiling of the 2 members of the 7, and they, just like Homelander, can't figure out why exactly Firecracker was included. And Annie can't figure out why Firecracker hates her so much. Now, Mother's Milk doesn't really care about that, but he knows that something is going on. It doesn't really make sense of why they included this whack job. And in order to get that information, he's going to need somebody on the inside. He proposes turning the A-Train. Annie and Huey push back right away, but Mother's Milk tells him, I know when a guy's ready to turn. That guy's ready to turn. Huey actually proposes just bringing Butcher back, and Mother's Milk tells him, yeah, no, and I'm in charge. The big reason why Mother's Milk thinks that the A-Train is about to turn is because he gave Huey and Annie that flash drive with the surveillance footage. And that flash drive is a big conversation point at the next meeting of the 7. It's one that Ashley goes to attend because she attends every meeting, but she's told, nah, you don't need to be at this one. In fact, you're no longer going to be the CEO. You're really just the CEO in name only because every company needs a figurehead, so just think of yourself as kind of a mascot, but Sage is going to take over all of your duties. Once a very shell-shocked Ashley leaves the meeting, they get down to the matter of this missing surveillance footage. Sage knows that it went missing, and Sage knows that they need to find out who this mole is. Now, the surveillance footage does fall in the jurisdiction of the Deep, who's an idiot, and everybody knows it. And while no one thinks it was him, Sage does tell him, you're no longer in charge of that department. And a little bit of a surprise, nobody suspects the A-Train. And it's during this meeting that he gets a text message that says, can we meet? But it's not from Mother's Milk, it's from his brother, or at least that's what it looks like. Mother's Milk got into the CIA server, he hacked Nate's phone, and he's the one who sent the text message. Because it's the only way he would be able to get the A-Train one-on-one. And this little plan of Mother's Milk works because as soon as the meeting's over, the A-Train rushes to go meet his brother, and he feels pretty hoodwinked when it's actually Mother's Milk. Mother's Milk pitches the A-Train on giving him some information. He quasi-blackmails him by telling him that he has surveillance footage of A-Train giving Annie and Huey the flash drive. But more than anything, he tells the A-Train, I know you want to do this because I know that you actually care, and suddenly, for whatever reason, you want to make a difference. So help me out. Give me some information. While A-Train puts on a tough exterior like he's not going to help, Mother's Milk's words do hit home. And shortly after the meeting goes down, A-Train tells Mother's Milk that there's going to be a meeting at the Vought on Ice's practice where Vicky is going to be meeting Homelander and Sister Sage. Mother's Milk then sends the word out to the team to meet up at that practice so that they can get to the bottom of this. The problem is the team is busy. Like Annie, she snuck back in a Vought tower because she had to get to the bottom of why Firecracker hates her so much. And the story actually saddens Annie quite a bit. It all dates back to her pageant days. Firecracker was on the pageant scene, and Annie was ruthless. I mean, she was very rude. She said some really hurtful things, and now it's Firecracker's chance to get back at her. As for the other two, Kimiko and Frenchie, they were busy with the whole, breaking up a terrorist cell situation. That's going to leave just Huey and Mother's Milk waiting for this meeting to go down. And before the meeting can go down, Sister Sage and Homelander are meeting with a couple of Vought employees to find out if they're the mole. A couple people fit the description of someone who might be the mole, but Homelander's anger gets the best of him and he kills the poor girl. Right in front of Ashley, who was planning on resigning her position because of the fact that she's now a glorified mascot, but once she sees Homelander just zap somebody's head, she decides to tear up that resignation because she doesn't want to be next. Sister Sage and Homelander then head off to the arena to meet up with Victoria Newman, where Huey is going to be listening to their whole conversation through the vent. The first thing that these three address is the elephant in the room, Firecracker. Because just like everybody else, Victoria can't figure out why Firecracker was chosen, and Sage tells her, yeah, that girl's got something that I can't find anywhere else, and that's the ability to take down Starlight. They then get into the matter of politics. Because getting rid of Starlight is just one domino to fall. The next one is going to be to kill off Singer once the election is certified. Victoria can't do it. She needs plausible deniability. But Sage, Homelander, the rest of the Supes, they need somebody like Victoria Newman in charge because Singer is going after the Supes. He's got a lot of restrictions, including keeping them out of the military, keeping them away from government jobs. They want to get rid of all of that. They don't want Supes to have less power. They want Supes to have all power. And having a Supe in the Oval Office, well, that gives them that chance. But what they ultimately want is Victoria to come out of the closet as a Supe. Victoria pushes back on the idea, but Homelander continues to pitch her. And as he's doing so, Huey's sweat drops out of the vent and it lands on Homelander. And it's at that moment that Homelander knows that it's Huey who's in the vent. He can smell him. So he starts to try to zap the vent with his eyes. And even though a couple of the members of Vought on Ice do end up perishing in this, Huey ends up getting away, and it's all thanks to the A-Train. He ends up scooping up Huey and running him to safety. And trust me, this is a huge shock to Huey. After dodging death, Huey heads to the hospital where he checks on his dad, but his mother is still there, which really annoys Huey. Only this time, Huey actually gets some closure. His mother apologizes for leaving him and abandoning him at such a young age, but she explains that she was dealing with deep, deep depression. She didn't want to abandon him, and for years she tried to reach out. She just didn't have the strength to do so. Of course, Huey had no idea about this because he was so young, and she says, yeah, that was kind of the point. You weren't supposed to know. I was putting on a strong face, but it got to the point where I couldn't do it anymore. As Huey's mom was trying to patch things up with her son, Butcher was kind of trying to patch things up with Ryan, although he had ulterior motives. After getting kicked out of the boys, he needed a backup plan on how to save Ryan, and he called up his old buddy, Joe Kessler, to help him out. Joe gives him a bunch of drugs that are going to knock out any Supe. You just need to put him in something. The plan is to drug Ryan up, take him to that safe house that Mallory built, and kind of reprogram his brain a little bit. But the one thing that Butcher says is, you get his head clear, but you don't train him up to take down Homelander. You got it? And Kessler assures him, yeah, no, I know, you've made it clear. Butcher then just has to lure Ryan over to his apartment, and he does that via video games. He connects with him online. He says, hey, man, I really want to talk to you and bury the hatchet. I only have 6 months to live. And it gets the best of Ryan, and he says, okay, fine, I'll come over. He does so without telling Homelander. And when he gets over to Billy's apartment, Billy has made Ryan a bunch of cookies. And those cookies are laced with the drug that's supposed to knock him out. But initially, Ryan says, nah, I'm good for now, thanks. The two, though, spend most of the day bonding, catching up, laughing a lot. And the mood is so good that Billy ends up throwing the cookies out. He can't bring himself to drug the kid. Billy ends up letting Ryan leave and go back to Vought Tower. And when Kessler comes over later that night, Kessler's pissed off because he was expecting a knocked-out 12-year-old boy. Man, that sounded creepy. But the reason he's pissed off is because he feels like the world's about to come to an end and they need that kid. Billy, though, tries to remind Kessler the deal was they weren't going to turn him into an asset because he is 12 years old. But Kessler yells back, by the time he is ready, the world's going to be over. We either figure out how to train him, or we figure out how to kill him. Homelander actually might be the one to kill him, though. Homelander couldn't find Ryan all day, and when Ryan comes home, he is pissed off. Especially when Ryan lies about his whereabouts, because Homelander can smell Billy Butcher on Ryan. He knows that Ryan went over there, and Ryan has to admit, yeah, I went over. I wanted to see him. He's going through a tough time. And Homelander yells at Ryan through clenched teeth, why do you care? Homelander feels like he's provided Ryan with everything, and then after this, he's just wondering why it seems like he's not good enough for Ryan. Why he's not enough. That's a question that a 12-year-old really can't answer, but it's at the point where anything Ryan says is going to piss Homelander off, and it basically does. He ends up breaking a mirror, but then going over to it and having an existential conversation with himself about his fathering techniques. And it's during this existential conversation where his self in the mirror says, you need to stop with this idea of love. I think what you need to do is go back to the start. That's the only way you'll become your true self. This episode does end on a happy note, though. It ends with love. The Deep headed over to Sister Sage's room to confront her about his role being taken away, but then they bond over a bloomin' onion. The bloomin' onion leads to them making out, and what the Deep doesn't notice is the bloody object that is sitting on the table that Sister Sage clearly used on somebody. Who or what, we don't know. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry, it'll be up in a day or two.